the Work Wonders podcast, brought to you by Asta HR, where we simplify the human side of business. I'm Angela.
And I'm Susan. Let's dive into today's episode and find out what you've been wondering about.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, Angela.
We're into season 5. Can you believe it?
No, I can't. Starting our third year of podcasting.
We're certainly pleased to be back in your ears in 2024. How exciting is that? Lots to plan and get ready for in 2024. I wonder what you're up to in your business.
Yeah, so as usual, we're starting off the season with questions from our listeners or other things that we've come across in our travels. So let's dive in. This is the Work Wonders podcast. The first question, Angela.
Right.
I think this one's one for you.
Okay.
Since you're our payroll guru. So someone's just starting out with their first employee and they know that they have to pay the hourly rate, whether it's according to the award or whatever agreement they have with the new employee. What else do they need to consider in terms of their regular payments for the employee?
Oh, sure. Yeah, okay, because there's a lot more than just an hourly rate. Obviously, that's very important.
Yeah, well, especially to the employee, but also to your budget. But in terms of your budget, there might be other things that you need to consider.
Okay.
So maybe we can talk about those.
Well, look, firstly, there's a lot more complexity to paying someone than just one base hourly rate, depending on a lot of factors. So first and foremost, always check your award. Fair Work publish pay guides for each award, and they keep them updated regularly. So if you're always going for the copy that's on their website, you'll always get the most current version.
Which is important.
Yes, it is. Because they're often changing. But yeah, that's a really great reference point because it will give you all the different rates, including all the allowances and all the different add-ons and things. So first and foremost, check your award. The second thing is think about when a person's working and what sort of duties that they're doing. If a person's working evenings or weekends or, you know, they're acting up in higher duties or there's all sorts of different things in some awards like the Building Construction Award.
Yes. So you're talking about allowances for different duties.
Yep.
But then there might be overtime.
Overtime's another one. Yep. So you've got penalty rates for certain times that the person's working. So whether it's, you know, evening or a broken shift or whatever it is. But then you've also got overtime. So if a person works over a certain amount in a day or over a certain amount in a week, then they're classed to a different amount of pay then. So yeah, look, they can become quite complex, but if you're just aware that it's all sitting there in the award and you're curious about that, you'll go and find the right information. And there are tools that can help you. So if you're using some systems like We're an Advocate for Deputy, that's a really great one that links with your award, and it's just a timesheet software, but it will integrate with the award and it will tell you, oh, well, if the person clocked in here and clocked out there, this is what you're up for.
Yeah, so there's technology that can help you work this out.
Yeah.
What other things do you need to
well, don't forget about super.
Right.
That's a big one. So we don't need to pay that until every quarter. You can certainly pay it more frequently if you want to. And other things, of course, like payroll or PAYG, withholding tax. Often people that I've spoken to before kind of go, oh, why is that now appearing on my BAS?
Oh, yeah.
Why do I have to pay this extra amount? So start to think I'm paying a certain amount to my employee in their bank. Good on me. That's great. I need to do that. But the little portion that I've withheld, that's not your money. That needs to go to the ATO. And the way that they do that is through the BAS. So,
the ATO would have a different opinion about whether it's your money or not. But yes, that's a good point. You do need to think of it that way.
Yeah.
It was never your money.
No.
Well, it was before you got an employee and had to pay them. Yeah.
Well, it's similar to GST, isn't it? You know,
exactly.
when you're invoicing someone.
You're collecting it.
Yeah.
And then passing it on.
You're doing the job for the ATO.
Yeah. That's basically what it comes down to. So I mentioned that you need to consider all these costs from the perspective of your budget going forward. Now, of course, when you put on an employee, you've also taken on obligations for paid leave. Including long service leave.
Yes.
As well as rec leave and personal leave and now the paid domestic and family violence leave.
Yeah.
So how do we keep track of that?
That's a really good question. And a lot of the different softwares haven't really shown us yet, like Xero and Marb and those sorts of things, they haven't shown us yet a really great system to track the family and domestic violence leave, because it's so much different than any of the others. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'd recommend going back and having a listen to our earlier episode that was just on that one. But yeah, there's no sort of difference in their systems yet that I'm seeing of how to track that. But when it comes to annual leave and personal leave or sick leave, that can be tracked through your payroll system because they're accrual based. So every time you pay someone, i.e. every time they work, they accrue a little bit more. And usually those systems are sophisticated enough for you to deduct that when someone wants to be paid that type of leave and go from there. But I'm recommending for the family and domestic violence leave to keep a spreadsheet probably. Would be the best thing to do unless you're using a sophisticated HRIS system or something.
And, of course, that's restarting every 12 months.
Yes.
So the entitlement is 10 days?
10 days, and it's based upon a person's commencement. So if they started on such and such a day, every 12 months it goes back to 10 on the anniversary of their start date. So that's what makes it a bit more complex.
And it also doesn't accumulate.
Yeah, but when it comes to long service leave, that's a tricky one because it's not very frequent. It's usually only 10 or 5 years past that. You know, it's not happening all the time. But it can be sort of a hidden cost for a business.
It can be a big chunk of change if you haven't taken that into account and set that aside.
Yeah. So you could talk to your accountant or bookkeeper about how best to do that, and you can actually start to track it as a liability for your business in a bookkeeping sense. And so you can start to track how much that you potentially might have to pay if someone comes knocking to take their long service leave.
Yeah.
You know, it depends. Talk to your accountant about what's going to work for you, but you could even set aside money for that. But yeah, that one can come out of nowhere sometimes if you're not tracking it.
So we've covered what you might have to pay an employee and we've talked about the award, but this is a question from an employer. Do I have to pay someone according to the award? Can I pay them more, for example? Or can I do something different?
In a very simple sense, yes, is the answer. More is the critical
is
part.
it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not less.
No.
And definitely not less than the minimum wage.
No. Yes, I think you can absolutely choose to pay higher. We've worked with some clients who say, oh, well, I actually want to pay these people a little bit more than that. Can I choose that?
And for many roles, you need to at the moment just to attract people.
Yeah. But the principles still remain. So the overtime calculation, the formulas of that and penalty rates and all those sort of things still apply. So you'd still need to add the same formulas upon whatever you're choosing to pay on top of that.
Good point. So they're all going to be based on whatever the base rate is that you agree to.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can absolutely do that. The rule of thumb is they need to be better off.
Yes.
Yeah. So they can't be worse off, including every factor of the award. So
all the conditions and the national employment standards. And, there's more information about that in other episodes. I'm thinking about one about what you need to know before you employ somebody. I think.
That was one of our first few episodes. I think it might even be 2 or 3. Yeah,
we'll put the links in the show notes anyway to anything that might be relevant. Also relevant to this discussion is the SJBP.
Yes, stronger jobs.
Secure jobs?
Oh, I always say stronger jobs. Yes, secure jobs better pay.
I've almost started saying that all the time now too. Secure jobs better pay, yes. Legislation and the various changes related to that and contracts and casuals and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of earlier episodes related to that.
Yes, you're right, Susan. Series 3, episode 8, and then again we did another in season 4, episode 9.
Yeah.
Check those out.
Great.
Well, here's a question for you, Susan, that we've received. You ready?
Go. Shoot it at me.
This particular employer is asking, do I need an employee handbook?
Well, carrying on from the conversation we just had about all the new changes to rules, I think you'd be mad not to, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah. But it does beg the question, what do we consider to be an employee handbook?
Yes, exactly. I've seen numerous different approaches. So, you'll also be familiar, Angela, with organisations who want everything in one big document.
Yes.
Which makes it a nightmare to update.
Can do.
Can do. Or you could have I've seen other organisations that have, like, this is our welcome pack.
Ah, yeah.
So these are the core policies and procedures that you need to know. And it's virtually a summary of what those things might be. And, the important things in there would be code of conduct, bullying, termination, grievance policy, work health and safety, obviously. Yeah. So that could be, what you call your handbook, but then those things articulate into a whole lot of other policies that sit in the background. Or there might be policies that you don't actually use very often, but you have there because you want something objective, something in black and white that you can refer to.
Yeah.
And whistleblower policy is one example I can think of that would be like that, where you might have someone who comes to you with a whistleblower. This could be a whole new episode, I just realised. Disclosure. And so it'd be very useful to have a policy that you can then refer to.
So fundamentally it's about or the purpose of what we're talking about here is to have the policies, the standards, the procedures all in one place or accessible to people and making known, particularly at the point of someone starting with you, but also having something that people can refer back to. So you might call it a policy and procedure manual. You might call it an employee handbook. But fundamentally, it's like those things that you were saying there of this is the way we do things. This is our policy on these matters,
And although we're calling it a book and a manual, it may well be something that sits online.
Oh, of course, yeah.
A folder in your system where people know they can go to find various subfolders related to certain aspects of employment, and in there they'll be able to find the policy that they're looking for. That makes it a lot easier to update it. Or, of course, there's various online systems that can do that for you.
But the other thing that I'm thinking of that you might not necessarily need to have a policy for, or it might just be covered in a discussion in your induction, for example, but you may put, like a uniforms, if you have a particular dress code or maybe you do casual Friday every Friday and you want to welcome people that, you're welcome to participate in that. Or, this is how we administer the payroll. Make sure you get this to so-and-so by such and such a date.
Get your timesheet in on time.
It might just be a discussion, but you could put that in something like an employee handbook, which can be helpful, especially for those times when someone's brand new.
Yeah, exactly. But also it means that there's consistency and clarity throughout your business.
Yeah.
So it's not relying on individuals' interpretation of what they thought you said when they first started 7 years ago. Are you feeling overwhelmed by all the things that you need to do to manage people in your business? We've got changes to legislation, different generations in the workplace, managing the expectations of the people that you employ. Why not hand all that over to the experts and get on with what you do best? The experienced team at Astor HR can quickly give you the advice that you need and get you headed in the right direction. With our HR support and coaching for you with managing people, it all becomes so much simpler. Schedule your free call today at astorhr.com.au. Now let's get back to the episode. So next up, we've got a couple of questions related to the recruitment side of things, when I'm hiring. And one thing that comes up fairly often is interviews. Like what can I actually ask in an interview? One example might be, am I allowed to ask where somebody lives, for example? If they haven't disclosed that on their resume.
I think what I would always recommend is to be really thoughtful and purposeful with your interview questions. It's probably a bit much to expect yourself to be able to determine everything about a person just in that hour that you might be able to spend with them.
Sorry, I'm just thinking you're Superman if you can do that. Or woman.
But you can still be very purposeful. So, something like location, sure, if it's relevant to your business, being respectful in the way that you ask that, sure. Maybe travel is important to the job or something like that. That's okay. but you would never go in asking questions that aren't relevant really to the purpose of the job or the criteria of the job. So keep it to things that you know you need to know in order to make that decision, and really purposeful questions that dig a little deeper in terms of, can a person really do this, or do they fit into our culture and our drivers here, our purpose, really trying to understand the person more on a relational level, I think, which is a lot easier said than done. But
Yeah. So I think you get into grey areas where you start getting to things like, so what do you do in your personal life?
Yeah.
What do you do with your leisure time?
I'd probably avoid those, yeah. There's definitely some big no-nos.
Well, there's even bigger ones than that. And we've covered discrimination and discriminatory behaviours in Season 2, Episode 4.
Yes, we did.
And we also had a bit of fun with interview questions quite early on, which was in Season 1, Episode 6.
We did.
So there we certainly gave some examples of questions you shouldn't ask. But the main thing, I guess, to be aware of is not asking anything that could be perceived to be discriminatory.
Yeah.
And under that might be things that, as Angela said, aren't particularly relevant to the role that you might just be curious about. For example, I think there's an example in that episode we just mentioned about, so when you're going to start having kids or something like that.
Yes.
Blatantly discriminatory.
Oh, it's awful. Please don't ask that.
But then there are others that just, walk a very fine line, like what school did you go to?
Yes. Yeah. Or I bet you're from my generation. Or not from my generation, or things like that.
Yeah.
I guess it's...
I'm just laughing, thinking, I wonder if anyone ever thought to ask me if, I was familiar with the internet or something because of my grey hair. Yeah.
It's basic decency and respectfulness. I think you wouldn't want to go into those spaces where you're creeping into something that might, don't presume is what I'm getting at. I think don't.
Yeah, exactly. And I think overall the thing to keep in mind is the interview isn't just a one-way street. So at the moment, you're also trying to attract that person to come and work for you. So the interview is your opportunity to demonstrate the sort of culture you have or you're trying to create in your business.
Yeah.
So if you're asking questions that are a bit dodgy, that's probably not doing you any favours.
And we're in a really unique position, Susan, when we help our clients with recruitment, because we can talk to a candidate that they've just interviewed and talk to them and say, how was it? How did you find it? What's your feeling afterward? How are you feeling about the job now? And that's a really unique place to be, because if an employer did that, the person might go, huh?
That's right.
Am I getting the job?
Why are you asking me the questions? Yeah, is this my second round interview? What's going on here? Yeah, that's true, because we can get some insights and we can also provide a bit further context and explanation for the candidate as well. The second recruitment related question that we've come across is where you might have, for example, two business partners or people who are both senior managers in a business who are both involved in a recruitment process, and particularly in the interview. They both interview someone, they're both there, but they come to divergent views about whether that person should fit or should get the job. So what would you do in a situation like that, or how do you avoid that sort of situation?
Roll the dice. Flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
No, of course I'm
We're
joking.
being flippant. Please realise that was a joke.
Oh, I'm definitely joking. No, I think, look, it can happen because everybody has a different perception to how things went and a different perspective. They might have a different expectation of what they're looking for. And that's okay. You want that complexity in an interview panel or different people on interviewing somebody.
But how much difference do you want in expectations? I mean, I would hope that you're both on the same page about what you're actually looking for.
That's very true. But someone that might see something you don't might be advantageous, so be open to that. But you make a very good point. I think that's where you start. In that example, two business partners, if they're not quite agreeing, if they can both agree to go back to the place of what are we expecting.
What is it that we're actually after for this role?
Yeah, I think that's a really sensible place to start because it takes you back to something objective. And if you've both agreed upon that beforehand, which is key, then that can be a good place to return to.
So basically, go forward by going back.
Yes. Yeah, but I think it can be a good way to just bring it back to something objective as opposed to, well, I saw this, I think this, and
I feel this.
constantly disagreeing on something. Yeah.
So, Angela, you and I get out and about a bit, right?
Yeah.
And quite often the reaction we get when we talk to people about what we do is a bit of a like, oh, it's such a, it's so complicated employing staff.
Yeah.
It's so hard and I'm all these changes in legislation. I'm so unsure a lot of the time of whether I'm doing the right thing. So how do I know if I'm doing the right thing?
But yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, if you think, and we were only talking the other day, if you look at our profession in HR, there's so many parts to it. So we know what you mean.
Lots of moving parts.
Look, absolutely. You've got people like us that you can lean on for that expertise and help, and definitely listen to our podcast. We try to keep things fresh and current for you so you know what's important. But you could go through the process of an audit, a HR audit. So just like you would audit your financials or work health and safety, things like that. You can audit your HR practices, and we support our clients with that to take them through that process.
Yeah.
We do have a really handy little checklist on our website that encompasses all those changes you mentioned. So the secure jobs, better pay, the respect at work, the family and domestic violence leave, all of that. So go and check that on our website if you want that handy little downloadable.
And that's a great starting point because you can just go through the list and go, well, yep, nope, oops.
Yes. Yeah.
And then give us a call.
Yeah. Yeah, but be kind to yourself because, it's okay if there's some things on the list you go, oh, we could be doing that better, or no, we don't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all part of business. So,
yeah. Like you say, we're only human.
Yeah, absolutely. But the idea is to stop and take stock of that,
yes,
have a look through and understand, because there are some risks to not having things in place.
It might take you time, but putting that time in now could save you a heap of time further down the track.
Well, I think that's all the questions we have for today's episode, Susan.
Yes, but remember, if you've got any questions, go to our website, astrahr.com.au, and there's a page there where you can put in anything you want to ask or hit us up on our LinkedIn page.
Yep, please do. And I wonder if any of these questions were answered for you today. Maybe something you didn't know of and it stood out for you today. Definitely jump on our LinkedIn page or contact us and let us know. We always love to hear what you got from the episode. Thanks for listening to the Work Wonders podcast, brought to you by Asta HR. Hit the subscribe button now to never miss an episode. And if you'd like to continue the conversation with us, you can find us over at astrahr.com.au. See you in the next episode.